quite a few exciting things happening in the tabletop RPG world. I think we're gonna settle this news type of video series into 3 parts. General news and announcements, Kickstarter stuff, and virtual tabletop stuff if we have any. Let us begin. Welcome to Polyhedron. My name is Ron. So first up, D&D Beyond just launched their new player app for iOS and Android earlier this month, which is cool. I'm a big fan of D&D Beyond and I use them a lot. I tried using the app. Its main thing is that you can use it offline, which is interesting given, the fact that almost every game right now is online. So I guess it's a little weird to launch a product that being offline is kind of its main feature. Anyway, it's cool, but it's not as good or useful as just opening your character sheet in a browser on your phone or tablet. And also you can't roll dice on the player app yet. So it feels like the app has to at least be as useful as the mobile website before it can become a permanent part of my D&D tool belt. But cool progress. Another quick D&D update is that new Unearthed Arcana was released earlier this month, and this one focuses on new feats. So if you're into feats, go check it out. No, it has a bunch of interesting stuff in there. I did read through it, and I'll put the link below. Personally, I do not mess with any of the UA stuff, anything that's under playtesting. I do not introduce it into my own games just because there's already so much stuff to be on top of with D&D that I can't. The Star Trek Adventures RPG is getting a new core rulebook called the Klingon Empire. It's going to contain lots of resources designed to help you build a Klingon-focused campaign and have a warship with a Klingon crew. It has a bunch of information about Klingon NPCs and a bunch of enemies to fight, like Romulans, Borg, Federation, and Dominion characters. It also has an introductory adventure and just tons of lore and history, and it contains an updated version of the core rules for the system. So from what I understand, if you haven't played STA before and you're more interested in the Klingon Empire than the base game, you actually don't have to purchase both books, which is really, really cool. Standalone rule books are cool, Wizards of the Coast. And the Klingon Empire is going to be a big one. It's like 400 pages and it costs around $55. Right now it's only available for pre-order and it will ship in October, but if you pre-order it now, you'll get a PDF preview, which is cool, but let's please just make it that when you buy a hardcover rulebook, any hardcover rulebook, you also get a digital version always. Next up, we have Iron Kingdoms, the steampunk-themed RPG from Privateer Press. Iron Kingdoms launched about 20 years ago, and it did have some of its roots within D&D 3rd edition, I think, but it later evolved into its own system that even though it had a very loyal fan base, it just wasn't very big. The game didn't do so well. So recently they announced that later this year they'll be running a Kickstarter campaign for Iron Kingdoms Requiem, which will be a D&D 5th edition compatible version of Iron Kingdoms, so all the lore, the stories, the characters, the abilities will be re-released and reimagined and made compatible with how D&D 5e works. And some people are bummed to see the standalone RPG go down and get replaced by 5e, but I actually think it's a pretty good move from Privateer Press, simply because it'll make it so much easier for people to enjoy this setting on virtual tabletops, since all of them have such deep support for 5e. I know that for a lot of people, the system and the rules are super important, and I enjoy different systems as well, but primarily I enjoy the story and the setting. And it sounds like they're going through all the hard work of creating awesome new characters and abilities and adventures for a system that I already know, so I'm on board. And honestly, with virtual tabletops doing most of the math for you, it's so much easier to get new players into the game. So I feel that something like this just opens up more possibilities. So I'm definitely going to be backing this one on Kickstarter when it comes out. Another game that's doing something similar is Numenera. While the original game is still very much available, they just announced a new book called Beneath the Monolith, which brings the Numenera setting of the Ninth World billions of years in the future to D&D 5e rule sets. And again, I think it's great. It's not that I want to live in a world where there's only one game system, not at all. But I do like the idea of decoupling the setting from the system, so you can mix and match them however you like. And a lot of people do that. There are constantly threads on Reddit about, playing Warhammer 40k with 5e rules, or I just saw one about playing a 5e module with Shadow of the Demon Lord rules. Having these companies officially release a pre-built way for you to do that, I think it's awesome. Let's move on to some interesting tabletop RPG Kickstarters that are ending soon. First, we have Nightfall, which is a horror fantasy setting for D&D 5e. This manual will dive you into a dark world full of terror and despair. The undead come back from the afterlife, and eternal beings crave the nullification of reality. You will face ancient horrors, but you will also come to know superstition and occultism, and you will learn to follow the moon as the only guide in this nocturnal world. In this ruthless settings, player will play night explorers, resilient survivors who adapted to the lunar age, an era where the sun is dead and life still endures, only thanks to the last primordial beings. So on their Kickstarter, which was fully funded in 35 minutes, by the way, you can get the free quick start guide, which, free, quick, and start, that's a really good combo. So I checked it out, and it's actually a 76-page introduction to the world and rules of Nightfall. They don't just build on 5e, they expand it. And there's more than enough info in that free quick start guide to inspire your game. So wow, good job. Really, really cool. And I love how all of these great tabletop RPG Kickstarters get funded in minutes. It just shows how passionate our corner of the internet is. Another interesting Kickstarter is Slayers, a smaller game from Spencer Campbell. And this game is about monster hunting in a city that was cursed to forever expand towards the horizon. This seems to be a very combat-focused game where you play one of 5 classes and fight monsters and the weird things that this city can throw at you. The creator of the game says that he wanted different classes to feel different. He says that on D20 systems like 5e, if you're a fighter wielding a battle axe or a wizard conjuring a spell, but both of you just roll a d20 and add a modifier, it doesn't feel different enough. Which, I get what he's saying. I totally don't agree with it, but I get it. If anything, I think that speaks to the versatility of a system, but in any case, Slayers has a pretty cool system where every class rolls differently depending on what they're trying to do. Whether that is shooting a gun and rolling a d6 for each bullet, or 1d6 after another as a blade master to see if you can keep up like a crazy combo. 4 and above counts as a success, so it's different on one hand, but not too complicated on the other. I'm still not convinced enough to back it, but I like the idea well enough, and I will keep an eye out for it when it releases. And finally, I wanted to talk about Bite, which is another game that's on Kickstarter right now, and it seems like it's trying to do something very ambitious and very interesting. It seems to me like it's one of those, either it's going to be the best thing ever or just a complete disaster type of thing. It's a rule system that's meant to be modular, so you could fit it into any type of game, be it futuristic sci-fi, realistic, like historical, high fantasy, noir, mystery, whatever. It's supposed to work by mixing and matching these building blocks that they give you, which are tech level, ancestries, skills, and thematic modules. So it's almost like you create a set of rules specifically for the setting you want to play. Like if you wanted to play a Star Wars-like game, or as they call it, space wizards with energy swords, you'd go with a high-tech level and a bunch of aliens and humans for your ancestries, have skills ranging from arcana to piloting and, fencing, and add some supernatural and sci-fi thematic modules. This seems super ambitious, and I'm really excited to see if it works, because if it's too complex, it'll fail, but there has to be some complexity in there to support so much stuff. So I'll do some reading on it. They also have a free quick start guide on the Kickstarter, which is really impressive. Yeah, check it out. That's gonna be it for this time. Feel free to send me stories if there's anything that you feel I should cover on these. But in the meantime, just, go ahead and play a game.